Hello and welcome back to the Law of Relevancy podcast. We like to talk to marketing and communications professionals across all walks of the industry about things that they're doing to stay relevant in today's day and age. I'm Cord Owen. I'm your host. I'm the CEO of Bake More Pies, a full-service advertising and marketing agency located in Tampa Bay. Also located in Tampa Bay is the Tampa Museum of Art, and the Director of Marketing and Communications is Nina Womeldurf. And that's who joins us today. Nina, thank you for coming in.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, we're very excited to talk to you. I mean, the Tampa Museum of Art is one of the premier museums in all of Florida. And
Yes.
It's a beautiful, beautiful building right there, Curtis Hickson Park. And the exhibitions, it seems like there's always a lot going on there at the museum.
Yeah, that's the number one thing is that we're open 7 days a week. The only 2 days a year that we're closed are Thanksgiving and Christmas. So any day of the week that you want to visit, it's usually 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Thursdays, we even have a few extra hours, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we do a fun art on the house from 4 to 8 p.m. where you can pay whatever you want for your admission price.
When is that?
Every Thursday, every single week.
So on Thursday, it's like whatever you feel like. It's
beginning at 4 p.m. Correct. So if you want to pay $0, you pay $0. But if you want to give us a nice donation, we are very happy to receive it.
Well, it seems like that kind of a program would appeal to just about anyone. Is that part of your overall strategy?
Yes. That is one of many different programs that we have at the Tampa Museum of Art in terms of trying to reduce the barriers of admission. We want to make sure that the museum is the community's museum and continues to be in the future so that everybody can feel that they're represented at the museum, but also that the museum cost of participating, cost of attending isn't an issue for anybody.
Well, that's a really, I think that's a very inclusive point of view. I think that's really cool. A lot of times, in marketing, you like to refine your messaging based off the demographics you're trying to target, and then you try to win in that group, right?
Yes.
But what you're trying to do is something a lot more broad than that, right?
Correct. Our real goal is to try to make sure that we can hear all of our community and make sure that we are able to represent everybody from different racial groups, different gender identity groups, different socioeconomic groups. Historically, museums have had a history of just kind of focusing on kind of like a central suburban lifestyle and demographic. And we want to make sure that the people don't feel that continues to be the case. The museum has had a strategic plan in place for several years, and our purpose really is to try to make sure that the programs that we offer, both educational programs and exhibition programs, have a variety of different topics that offer insights, both historical and contemporary, into different points of view of different artists. And also, we want to make sure that the ability for people to attend our programs is easy for everybody, whether they're able to give a little bit more and pay our regular $15 admission price, or if they want to give even more and be a member to get invites to our special events. Or if they can't afford that, we still want them to be here, that we still want them to be a part of the museum, since this is the cultural legacy of the city of Tampa.
Yeah, for sure. And the background in the museum is a little unique when it comes to museums, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Our museum was founded in 1920. At the time, the city of Tampa was still very young, and we did have a group that's a part of the Federation of Women's Clubs of America. And with the city, they decided to found the beginning of the Tampa Museum of Art. And it really was all community-based volunteer work to be able to set up our first exhibition. The city of Tampa actually loaned us the Red Cross room in the city of Tampa's old City Hall building. And our very first exhibition was, I think, November 22nd, 1920. We have a history book that has all this information in it. But from there, like the city of Tampa would give us different spaces throughout like the history of our 100 years until most recently, in 1979, we opened our first building that was dedicated for us on the other side of Curtis Hickson Park. But in 2010, after fundraising for a bigger space to give us more galleries, more room for our programs, we opened the building that we're in right now. And we're still in the Curtis Hickson Park downtown area. And the idea really was that by founding this organization, it would be a museum for the community. Other museums sometimes are founded by a donor has a large collection of artwork that they just need somewhere to house, and then after they leave it, after they pass, like they basically found a museum as a place to see this one specific collection of artwork. And in our case, because we were founded more as an arts and cultural center, it's been more about what the community wants to see, and all of the exhibitions were organized by what the community wanted to see and what the community wanted to collect. And little by little, we started growing our member base in that way.
So as someone in a marketing communications field, how do you get that feedback from the community? How do you congeal that into a unified message or into a clear action plan? Because it seems like the propensity to be very scattered or random with that is possible. So how do you turn that into, or curate that, to use a museum term, into something that makes sense and tells a story?
You're right that there is a risk of just becoming like too scattered and having a lot of different directions. But that's why we have I'm pretty confident we have like hundreds of different types of programs that we do offer. But the programs and the way that we market each of the programs kind of directly go to the audience bases that we talk about. We have everything that ranges from programs for people who want to donate a lot of money, and then we have programs that go for people who just want to come here for a day to see our exhibitions. But we also have programs that are community organization based, where we partner with local community organizations to provide art therapy inspired studio programs to help their specific basis. So for example, we work with the Spring of Tampa Bay. We work with a variety of different senior care centers. We work with centers that specialize with people with PTSD, people who have different types of drug and alcohol abuse disorders. And we also work with domestic violence centers and centers for helping children and women who are going through difficult times. And there's a variety of different types of programs that we offer, but because of that, we specifically dedicate our marketing for the different types of channels, because we know that we can't send one newsletter that literally has everything listed, because it would be overwhelming for everybody. So that's where we do our work in kind of splitting that off and kind of segment marketing every single type of program that we have.
And I bet a channel like social media is a perfect place to put all that content too.
It is a great place, yeah. With social media, on top of being able to talk about all of the different types of programs that we have, one of the things that we take away is really that social listening, the ability for us to kind of see what our followers are interacting with, listening to their comments online. And then when we're going to get ready to talk about one specific type of topic, whether it's relating to our exhibition, whether it's relating to a social issue that's affecting our community, one of the key things is kind of doing research. Like you can research the hashtags, you can research the keywords, try to find out kind of what is the public opinion about this, what is the public conversation, how is it leaning, and what kind of of responses are people looking for from community organizations like our museum?
Well, I mean, Nina, that's a very logical, and I would almost say like an approach an engineer might take to to marketing. Is there a chance there's any engineers in your family?
Actually, there is. Both of my parents are engineers, actually. My dad has his PhD. My
Wow.
mother has her master's degree, and they really, really, really wanted me to be an engineer. They tried really hard. But the good thing about it was that like they did teach me like a lot of technical skills before I even got into college. And so one of the things it's like that I could say like that kind of got me started on kind of the creative side of things is when I was younger, a teenager, I decided that I wanted to build my own website series just to kind of put information out there that I didn't think was easy to find. And so I taught myself how to code websites. And from there, I kind of took an interest in finding that there is this creativity I guess connection between the technical side of things, the engineering side of things, and just creativity and making beautiful things. And so I like working in that line where they both connect.
Maybe one of these days that can be your exhibit
Maybe.
at the museum. Well, that's super cool to hear about. I mean, to be honest with you, like I really like personally, I love, art. My grandmother, she came from France, and she went through World War II and suffered through all of that. But like, she was really proud of her heritage. And one of the things that I was lucky enough to be able to go over there and see some of like what she really was in awe of in terms of like all of the art and how it was celebrated over there. And you can just tell like how important it is to a culture and how important it is to have it as part of our culture. And the mission that you guys are doing here in Tampa is just so important. I mean, I know that the museum is a kind of a box shape,
Yes.
but there are a lot of business. I mean, it was a box on purpose. It's got the perforated, facade, and it's part of art in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But, just like living here in Florida, especially in an area that's grown so fast here in Tampa Bay, it's like almost every building is a box, and then you look at other parts of the world and like they've really tried hard to incorporate like elements of nature and just those pieces of architecture that help inspire people. And obviously art, even on a small scale, whether, you're painting something like what's behind you right now, or you're doing something like trying to figure out the puzzle code of, putting something together that looks beautiful on a computer or mobile, device. And so it's very interesting to hear about how you guys are incorporating art therapy as well. I know that that's a big movement out there right now.
Well, art really is a part of everybody's lives, whether you realize it or not. And I know that there is kind of like a line between art and design. Art exists really for the sake of itself. Design exists to be pretty and make a function of something. But you can't really get to a good design unless you've studied art and you know kind of those elements of the visual language, because human beings tend to express themselves in a like very creative way, and we have thousands of years of history of people doing this. And culture really is kind of what defines like the specific group of people that live in that region. And even though we live in a global economy today, like we live in a very global way where like a trend that's popping up, on the other side of the world travels the internet so quickly that it becomes trendy on this side of the world like the next day or something. And we see that all the time through like, Instagram and TikTok challenges with different music that people dance to. It's kind of that way of us sharing a community and a sense of belonging with each other. And what art does, especially in the museum, it helps us figure out kind of where do we belong in this large sense of the human culture around the world. Where have we been in the past, and kind of what are some of the things that that we're aiming for together as a collective for the future. And the Tampa Museum of Art has a really good specialty in that we talk about both antiquities, because we have our antiquity selection that's always on view at our museum. But then we have all of the galleries that we curate to talk about contemporary modern art. So you can kind of make the connection as to how people lived thousands of years ago, our collection specifically about Greek and Roman antiquities, and how that relates to today. How do some of these themes exist today, even thousands of years separate?
That's a really cool story to tell. And I did notice that about your museum, where you do have the very ancient stuff as well as the contemporary. I don't think can you say it's modern art, or is that an entire like type of art?
Modern art is a
Yeah.
type of art movement. And even though modern art, as the art period is already past, we do exhibit it. That's why we say modern and contemporary in our description.
Contemporary. Yeah.
Contemporary is what's the latest and greatest.
Well, that's what we want to talk about in the law of relevancy, because that's the definition of relevancy as well, right?
Yes.
So one of the things, even outside of your walls, you guys have learned and adapted in some very cool ways over the last, let's say, 18 months. One of the things that I thought was really cool and is perfectly aligned with your mission, and I love it when things just click so well, and it's obvious that you guys are implementing a strategy over there, but I was looking through your YouTube channel and saw that there were art classes in there.
Yeah.
And it was really neat because there was this one type of art, and it looked like it was inspired by an artist, and they were using mosaic pieces to put together these different representing, things that were in life, whether it was a photograph or whatever, but they would use materials and different mediums to do it. And I was thinking, man, that's just so cool. And I could just see people consuming that content from anywhere in the world and just experimenting with that art and like waking up different parts of their brain that maybe, don't get used when we're answering text messages all day. And I thought it was a really, really cool thing that you guys were doing.
Well, that's actually one of the newer programs that we've been able to do. And since this has really all come about since COVID happened. So while it has been like a very serious global crisis, and we've all taken our own steps personally in our lives to make sure that we've all come out of it relatively safe and unscathed. The museum did have to take some steps early in March of last year. We had to make the decision of closing. It was the best decision we could do for the public safety at the time, and we closed for 2.5 months, and we reopened again on June 1st of last year. So during that time, I mean, you can imagine that we're all kind of scared as to what's going to happen to our jobs, as everybody else in the world was going through the same exact processes. But we're really grateful to our executive director. Michael Tomor did an excellent job at kind of managing the crisis at the time. And we set ourselves the task of basically, how do we make the entire museum virtual? So it was all at once, all departments, all hands on deck. How can we make everything virtual? Because it had been all programming prior to this had all been in person. And so this was a completely new set of tasks for the museum, and figuring out everything that we needed, from equipment to software licenses to training as to what button do I have to click to make sure that it actually goes live on Facebook, and everything in between. And I think we're able to show kind of our creativity and our resilience, and coming up with how to be able to translate our existing programs into this virtual format. And the program that you mentioned, ArtSpot Online, is one that it's one of my particular favorites, because even though it's an activity that's set up in a language that it's easy for kids to understand, it's perfect for anybody, adults also, to follow along and try to make a new project, because there's a little bit of instruction on the art history of one specific object in each episode. We're talking about one object in our exhibition that's on view right now. So you get to learn a little bit about the history behind it, or the theme behind it, but then you get to practice and follow along with an actual task of creating something fun and creative at the end. And like I was saying, that all humans, we're all creative people. This is a really good way, whether you think that you're creative or not, for you to just practice a different type of activity and break out of your regular routine to do something a little bit different, and to be able to like just get yourself in a different mindset. It's really, really important for self-care, really important for kind of self-introspection and just being at peace with yourself.
Yeah, well, I was really excited about it. I was looking forward to sharing it with my wife, and might be something cool that we do with our kids, over the weekend. It's like a fun
Yes.
activity to kind of explore some different things that we're into, and we can all make our own pictures. I think that's something that anybody listening to this or watching this, please go to the Tampa Museum of Art's YouTube page. It's this program. It's Art Spot Online. It's
Yes.
right there, and there's several lessons in there that can really teach you how to do some cool things and make art that looks really neat. And it's not like the paint by numbers stuff, it's really neat. You're making really art, real art. But I want to get back to a little bit more about you, Nina.
Mhm.
You have kind of an interesting background with a little bit of research I did on you. You're sort of like a unicorn when it comes to, you have all these skills when it comes to coding and digital media and video. And I'm used to, talking with other high level people in marketing, and a lot of them at some point early in their career figured out that they were good at management and didn't develop all those skills. Like, how much do those skills that you have, which are abundant, come into play on a daily basis in what you're doing there as the director of marketing communications?
Well, I've like since I started doing management activities before I started here, like I really always wanted to keep the creative skills as part of my daily activity. As I was explaining, it's just kind of, it's part of being able to get your ideas out there and change your way of thinking if you need to. Having some basic skills at the minimum is a really good way for you to like be able to creatively brainstorm when you do have a new project coming on, when you're at the very beginning and you're like, you don't know like what you want to do after you've written your scope. It's like, what's next? Having that practice of doing something creative for yourself, whether you're trying out a new technique, you want to figure out, like you're like browsing through YouTube and you see like there's like a really cool way to make something glow in Photoshop, and you want to try it out, like try it out for yourself. And then by doing all of these types of little exercises, you can bring those into your everyday practice for your regular job. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing. And by being able to like use all of the different software platforms that my team works on, I'm also able to kind of be more productive in my feedback to them, because while it's good to have a team that's very capable at doing everything, whenever they do need feedback, they might get stuck because they don't necessarily know like a shortcut around it, or they haven't ever seen the type of imagery that you're trying to describe and get across. Helping them kind of getting started along the way goes along a long way to like make sure that we get the end result together that we're all looking for, and through all of the different review and revision processes.
Is that something that's built into you, is like this innate desire to just learn new things?
I'm pretty sure it is, even though I don't really like think about it, because I have gotten comments like, how did you know that? Like that's like a very common phrase that I've heard. It's like I just spill out facts at random times.
Right. Well, I can tell you, my background, I made my first web page in like 1996. Right. And that was, I think the internet was just a baby. It was like a year old. And, and so like early on, I had to know a lot of the skills, but it is helpful. Like what you're saying, it is helpful to be able to communicate with like a client or somebody like on the like project planning side or brainstorming side. Like
Yes.
you can speak up more quickly if an idea isn't feasible or practical because you know what goes into it. Or
Yes.
like if you're talking about, like you were talking about coding a website, like, is it an iframe, an embed? Is it
Yeah,
a
there's a lot of
JavaScript? Is it
variations.
an API? Like they all accomplish similar things, but it's important to know the difference when you're
Mhm.
talking with your team, right?
Yes. Between knowing those differences, but like you were saying, also like being able to like know when a client or somebody's asking you for a task, what's realistic and
Right.
what's realistic within the time frame that you have specifically, because like, well, maybe we can accomplish it, but with a lot of time and patience to be able to like set something up exactly the way that the client is looking for. And without knowing some of these things, like you might just kind of get yourself in a really sticky situation where you're going to end up having to apologize a lot because you weren't able to accomplish that vision. So this is knowing the creative process, I think, helps you a lot, and being more certain in what you can accept as far as like the tasks and projects you take on.
I appreciate that point of view. I really do. And you know, I think that we are related in that way. I think that that's really cool. So how involved are you in your social media threads, for example? It seems like if you scroll through your threads, they're very interesting and eclectic. And so are you like hands-on involved with any of that?
I like to give people room to be able to kind of flex their own muscles. Like, so for my specific team, we do have a weekly meeting where we kind of meet and talk about our general goals, and we kind of outline what are the different types of things that we want to accomplish in social media, for example, like throughout the week, throughout the month, and kind of planning a little bit further ahead. So I like to give them a general frame of this is the general framework of what we want to accomplish, and then helping them kind of divide it into small tasks, but then giving them feedback along the way to make sure that they don't get too far along finishing a video project or a graphic project before like they show it to me, so that we know that we're at least going in the right direction. So some early feedback at that point, then I can let them kind of take over like the publishing and like the scheduling aspects of things. So that's my general way of practice for any kind of social media project.
So that actually sounds like really effective leadership, Nina. Do you study leadership as much as you like have looked into a lot of these tactics?
Um, Marketing management was one of the courses that we did learn about at USF. However, I can really attribute my leadership at being an older sister and knowing how to boss my siblings around.
That's great. Just clean the kitchen. Just clean your bedroom, like
Like,
however
just
you want
bring
to
me a
do it.
glass of water.
Yeah,
Like, that's that.
exactly. Right. That's great. And so obviously as a director of marketing and communications for a large nonprofit organization like the Tampa Museum of Art, you're really juggling a lot of hats. I mean, speaking of leadership, I think it's important that you can't get bogged down into some of those details because you've got a lot of really important things to do. I mean, you've got lots of different stakeholders you're working with. So you've got the patrons, the
Yes.
people who are coming into the museum. You have the development side of the business and the organization where you're trying to attract more Cornelia Corbett's of the world, right? To follow in and support the mission,
Mhm.
and a number of things like that. Where do you see the role that you play? How do you see that role going into the future for nonprofits in general?
Well, nonprofits have been kind of a business model that I've been working on like since my very first actual job during college. I started working at the Straz before I worked at the USF Center Gallery, like worked at USF for a really long time, and just in terms of kind of that nonprofit world and seeing like all of the different activities that you wouldn't normally be able to sell if you were selling them at actual like at an actual profit. It's like you see like the value of things in a different way. So in terms of trying to continue like working with the different departments here at Tampa Museum of Art, it's more about trying to figure out what are each individual department's goals, because again, like I was saying, we have so many different channels of audiences to work with. we have to figure out, is this particular marketing thing that you're trying to do going for a fundraising type of event? Or is this going for more of trying to bring an audience into a program that you're trying to start up new? And because we are a limited staff, I mean, as big as the museum building is, we're less than 50 staff. Like we've had a couple of new hires, so I don't know the exact count right now, but we're still a really small staff. And we rely a lot of on work from like committees and volunteers who are able to kind of give us their feedback from what the community perspective is like. So the best thing that I can offer from my seat as the marketing director here is just kind of trying to see things from a big picture and saying, how does this channel of communication that's completely unrelated to this other goal and channel of communication, how are they going to relate in the long run to try to make sure that the museum is accomplishing those strategic plan goals that it wants? And how can we leverage some of the activities that we weren't maybe considering for one specific type of fundraising method, so that we can get a little bit more attention in this other department here. So it's more about trying to see things from a really, really high up perspective and how all of these different things link together.
So Nina, I think that was a fantastic way that you spoke about, your role and how all the pieces come together. And I'm going to put you on the spot right here. So tell me about a time when you did those things and you were really proud of it, where you pulled it all together. Like,
well, like most recently that I can think of, like, is when we were in pandemic closed down mode. It's like the trying to get everybody on board with the same communications platform. So like
okay.
we heavily jumped into Microsoft Teams. I had never used Microsoft Teams before this, but we needed a way to be able to have like our video conversations or chat messages when we were all staying sheltered at home individually. And then to be able to kind of leverage like the need of being able to translate our art spot program, for example, used to be an in-person program every single Saturday. And so how to translate that into a virtual program. So that involves working with not just the education department, but working with the fundraisers to make sure that we have the correct sponsors listed, that we have the correct information for your script for the art spot video, and then having the ability to kind of leverage the fact that we now have this program as a way to be able to do some other types of fundraising. So now that when we have like a database of a little bit of history of virtual programs, that's enough to be able to go solicit grants, so that allows us to be able to build things and keep growing that program. So everything that I've been able to do in that sense is just support the development team to give them the information in terms of their analytics, anything else that they needed that would prove that these programs were very successful, and we want to continue and have additional resources to continue building those. So I would say that like time of it was panic for everybody, but I think like I worked really well during that time, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds like you really did pull it all together, because not only were you trying to get everybody to like, hey, like nobody panic, like we got this, to like we're going to learn software, to like you develop new programs that are allowing your development department to go get more money. That
Yes,
it all came together and you're able to pull it all together, and you're still smiling, like you used to have all your hair and everything. It's great.
yeah, a few extra grays, but still here.
That's
But the
great.
team here is fantastic, and I
Yeah.
can't say enough about how wonderful the staff at this museum is.
And it seems like working in the nonprofit world is actually, I mean, you just mentioned it, like you have to learn how to measure things in a little bit of a different way. The value comes differently. It's not just
Yes,
about selling a widget, right?
exactly. The biggest, like the easiest example I could say is like the actual, like the full admission ticket price that we charge for adults is $15, but it doesn't cover what it costs to actually put on an exhibition. If we were charging a real face value for covering our entire cost of having the building open and like the cost of bringing an exhibition, we'd be charging close to $80 per ticket. So we're trying to like kind of make up that difference by doing all of these other programs that can bring other types of revenue in, because if the ticket value really was $80 per person, then we wouldn't have an audience. They would be way out of the reach of most people.
No, that's very insightful, because not only do you have the museum, you have events. I mean, I know that especially with the new development of the expansion, I know in one of the videos that I saw related to that, we actually helped one of the construction companies with their presentation to the selection committee for the museum, and they had like a wedding scene, out there in this new, with the cantilevers and everything, where that was going to be in the new expansion. And so there's a lot that goes on there at the Tampa Museum of Art, and they're very, very lucky to have you there. And I think the museum is in great hands with you, Nina, and we really, really appreciate you coming on the show today and telling us more about it.
Well, I'm happy to be here. This was wonderful. And thank you so much for the invitation again.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you're welcome back anytime. And where can people follow the Tampa Museum of Art online and keep up with you?
First, go to our website, tampamuseum.org. You can find about all of our exhibitions, all of our programs. Information is listed there. And we are on lots of social media. So we have our Facebook, we have our Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So we post our videos to all of the platforms, and you can follow us on any of those channels as well.
That's great, Nina. Well, I'll make sure everybody knows to do that. And to follow more episodes of the Law of Relevancy, you can find our podcast anywhere where podcasts are found across social media, as well as the podcast world. And please like and follow us, and we'll see you again next time. Again, I'm Cord Zoen, and thank you for joining us.